is the silence of the range. It's not the bow. It's nor the arrow, nor the target that holds the power. So in the range is silent, your mind is not. It's the archer's mind, that invisible force that can make or break champions. Welcome to Arch Talk 101. We'll be unlocking the secrets of mental fortitude in the art of archery. So my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm going to be your host today, and we're going to be diving into that mental game we just talked about. So imagine you're on the range, bow in hand, the target is in sight, and now let's get that bullseye ready. So before we get into this, I want to remind everybody on where you can watch the podcast live in the Archduck 101 Facebook group, as well as you can watch replays in the same group as well. You can go out to my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. And also you can go out to archtalk101.com. They have all out there out at the YouTube channel. We have multiple things out, not just archery. We have all kinds of other things out there for you as well. And then on the archtalk101.com, not only do we have the podcast out there, but we have some other information out there as well. If we have an item or review, I can do reviews out there. If there's an item I recommend, we can talk about that. There's all different things in archery, some equipment you might need to work on it yourself. All that kind of stuff is out there. And you can always get a hold of us in the group as well, and we can help you out there. Now, if you prefer to listen to the audio part of it, so you can listen while you're driving or whatever, Spotify has the audio part of the podcast, as well as audible.com. That's kind of a nice place to listen to podcasts as well, because they just kind of keep going in there. Now, before we dive into the intricacies of that mental game, it's essential to ensure that the form and the bow is set up or optimized. Proper form and equipment lay the foundation for consistent and accuracy. So that's kind of vital part. If you're thinking about, your equipment don't feel right or something isn't feeling right, you're not going to be thinking about anything but what's wrong with your bow. You want to have that completely out of your mind. So when we dive into the mental aspects that we're going to be talking about today, we want to make sure that that is all set up and going good as well. Once those are in top condition, then we can start focusing on the mental aspects. So first, let's go over a few things that I want to make sure that you understand as far as your setup and yourself and your bow before we get too far into it. Let's get in some of the background information, and then we're going to dive into the how to fine tune that mental game. So first off, let's address some common mistakes archers often make. One frequent error is neglecting proper warm-up routines, leading to decreased flexibility or increased risk of injury, and others ignoring the importance of consistent form, which can result in inconsistent performance. We've talked about that, quite a bit in the past. So I just want to kind of bring that up so that, as you're following along in all these lessons that we're going to get through, and you're going to have the best setup so that you can dive into those. Now, beginners in archery, they often make, several common mistakes in their performance. Here's some of the more frequent ones that we come across. Incorrect stance. The proper stance is the foundation for good shooting form. Beginners, they may stand too rigid. They may face the target. So now you're looking at the target. Your shoulders are kind of square or almost square to the target. And that don't allow for good form because you're in kind of a weird position. Now, so you want to get in there. I teach, the tips of the toes are in a straight line with your arrow, or your arrow, tip of your toes points directly to your target. So that's a complete, closed stance. You need to make sure if you're shooting that form, you have the rest of your form is conducive to that type of a stance. A lot of times you'll take that front foot and slide it back slightly. That opens you up. And if you don't have that proper grip, that'll help save your arm from getting hit. The other thing you can do is, the wrong draw length. If the bow is way too short or way too long for you, that's going to, affect your accuracy as well, especially if it's really too long because you're going to have more up to hit that arm. If it's really too short, you're scrunched up. You want to be at that comfortable position. I shoot a 1/2 inch longer than what my draw length measures. We'll get in a little bit later on how to do that, but That's something you want to make sure that the draw is correct. That helps you get into that proper form. And like we talked about earlier, is, videos can see that alignment. Is that the proper drawing for you with that bow? Now, improper bow grip, you know, that's kind of misleading. You don't grip your bow, you put pressure on it and let it go what it wants to do. So that's kind of the one of the things you can put tension. You can take a perfectly tuned bow that, if you're shooting through paper, you get a perfect tear every time. Now just grip that bow tight, like you had a death grip on it. And now shoot that bow and see what that arrow does. And most likely it's not going to give that good tear that you were just getting, because you're putting tensions in that bow uh, that you don't want to have. Now, for those shooting fingers, if you're shooting a reach curve or long bows, or you have with the older bows that are real long axle X and you're shooting with fingers, you know, placing your fingers incorrectly on the bowstring, it can be twisting when you're releasing it. That all affects the flight. What proper release technique do you have on that? Are you going through that nice back tension release where your hand is coming across your face like it's supposed to, or are you plucking it, hand coming out? All that's going to affect it. The other thing is not using an arm guard when one is needed. If they use that arm guard, and that bow strikes that forearm, besides being painful, um, that all protects the arm and it keeps your coat out of the way. Now, if you're shooting a compound bow, your draw length is correctly, it's set up, you don't need an arm guard. You should never be hitting your arm. If you do, you're purposely you're getting your hand twisted or something in there. That just kind of leads to you're really doing something wrong. Now on me, I'll get kind of a recoil slap right on my wrist, right above my watch, in between my watch and my hand, and that's not hitting my arm. That's after I've shot and the bow does what it wants to do, and it's got that little recoil and it catches it right there. I don't even really notice it. I just like, oh, a little red. I don't really notice it, but it's not hitting my arm because that's after the bow's already left, and it's just hitting that part of my hand. So that's something, an arm guard. If you think you need it, wear it. If you're afraid of hitting it, if you've hit your arm before, maybe you want to wear an arm guard until you get confidence that you're not hitting it anymore. So that's just something you want to do. Now, one of the problems we have is inconsistent anchor point. That's something, as you draw back, where are you anchoring on your face? You want to do it at the same time. If you're shooting fingers, if you're anchoring the index corner of the mouth, same point every time. If you're anchoring your child down bow, like the Olympic archers do, so you can get that little bit longer reach with the other setup, or if you're using a handheld, what part of your hand fits on there? Uh, if you're using a wrist strap, what part of your hand fits on what part of your face. You want to be consistent every time. The best way is bone on bone because it's not as flexible. If you take like your meaty part of your hand and try and put it somewhere on your chin, there's too much flexibility in there. So bone on bone is the best way to do it. But just be consistent on whatever you're anchoring. Be consistent with it every time. I use a kisser button and a peep, and then touching my nose. So between the peep, the kisser button, my nose, my hand can do multiple things depending on which release I'm using. Uh, Now, for you compound shooters, punching the trigger, that is the biggest thing I see archers that are using a caliper type release or even a handheld type release. The handheld seems like it's even worse because you got that non-dexterous thumb that you're trying to pull this trigger with something that don't have much dexterity. At least the index finger has some. If you're punching that trigger, because we can only do one fine motor skill at a time, which is aiming, if you're pulling the trigger or using your thumb, you're not aiming anymore. So where you're hitting, you don't know because you quit aiming. One of the things that, by punching the trigger, that can lead to target panic. So what'll happen in target panic is you see it, you're going to pull the trigger when the pin is on top of the target. So you're watching the pin and the target, and the pin starts coming across that finger or that target, and you say, pull the trigger. Well, what's going on? That pin is moving off. Now the next thing is he's like, oh, don't shoot. So it's start to pull the trigger and don't shoot. That's your target panic. And if you aren't pulling the trigger, all you're doing is focusing on the target, put the pin over it, it's going to float, and then it's going to go off. You don't know it's going to go off, so you don't have target panic. Um, Now, if you're having troubles with any of this, one of the things that a lot of archers do is they don't seek professional help. All of us need a coach. We need a coach no matter what we're doing. We need a coach, somebody that we can bounce ideas off, look at what we're doing. Especially if you're beginning, you want to find somebody that's going to help you out. Whether it's finding somebody in like the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group. If you're having trouble with stuff, go ahead and ask it in that group because they're going to be able to help you. You don't have to worry about people trying to sell you stuff because we don't allow selling in that group. So it's just all pure content information for the archers. So seek, qualified coach, someone that's been doing it for a while. Like myself, I started, I become a coach in 1995, and I've taught hundreds of shooters how to shoot. I've taught some online, so haven't even met them in person yet. In fact, the first guy I taught online was in Italy, and I'm in Nebraska, so I'm teaching a guy in Italy. He's in this group, so um, he's in the group, so he may hear this, may not. But hey, it's something that we can do online now that we have access to stuff like that. We have the Zoom call. I'm recording this on the Zoom, so we could easily be teaching on there. So there's always ways you can get help from somebody, and there's always a lot of us out there that will be willing to help. Now let's move on to the next section, the importance of the correct draw length and draw weight. That is something we kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, but to excel in archery, it's not just about physical strength, the quality of your equipment. It's also about the harmony between the archer and the bow. So getting that perfect draw length setup for you that feels good to you, that draw weight that you can easily pull. I like to, especially new archers, if you can slowly draw that bow back like a deer is kind of watching you, you aren't shooting too much weight. If you have to bend way back and drawing across your chest and moving up, if you're out hunting, you ain't going to get anything because you're going to have too much movement, as well as you're going to use the wrong muscles when you're drawing. So that's what you want to do. Make sure you have that, that alignment, is crucial in achieving that consistency. So make sure that you're not drawing too much weight or that draw length is not right for you. Make sure all that fits so that you feel comfortable with that bow. If you're shooting it enough, it's going to feel like part of you. It's going to feel like it's not something that you're shooting. It's just a part of you that you draw that energy, you store it, and then it just goes off. So that's something you want to work for and letting that feel right. And that if the draw length's not right, the draw weight's not right, your form's not right, all that can affect it. So now, for those that don't know how to figure out your draw length, I'm going to go through a couple steps that you're going to figure out, so how you can measure your draw length. Now, this is a starting point. All the people I've tested this on, I have yet to find anybody that's longer than this formula tells you. Almost always that or shorter. So one of the first steps, in that getting that fine tuning is ensure that bow fits you. So, let's measure that draw length accurately. And this, you're going to need a friend to help you with this because you're going to be measuring stuff. So stand with your arms stretched out like a T, all the way out. Don't, stretch as far as you can. Just comfortably put them out and then point, your fingers so that your palms are pointing forward. And now then have somebody measure the distance between the tip of the middle finger to the tip of the other finger. So that's the longest between your middle fingers are normally the longest. So measure between there. Now take that number and divide by 2.5, and that'll find your draw length. For instance, let's say you measured at 70 inches, and then your draw length would be your wingspan, which is that 70 inches divided by 2.5 would give you a 28-inch draw length. So that's where I would start with on a draw length, see how it feels, and then maybe go 27.5. Maybe you need to go a little shorter. Now, me, when we measured mine, I was 29.5. At that time, I was shooting 32 inches, which is what I thought I was because the first bow was a 32-inch bow. And I went in the shop and she had, draw that back. How's that feel? I didn't know. It's like, okay, was 32 inches. So when I had to get another bow, I'm looking for a 32-inch draw length bow. Well, I had one, and when I went to shooting school, they measured me at 29 and a half inches. So I had to take that 32-inch bow and make it 29 and a half inches from Friday night when they measured everybody to Saturday night when the class was. So I had basically Saturday to make my bow 29 and a half inches. So I had to cut off, 2.5 inches of draw length. Well, we did, and it felt short for a long time. And then after shooting for a while, now I shoot 29. I like that, just that little half inch shorter, because we talked about an arm guard earlier. Big heavy coats in wintertime. I've hit my arm, the coat before when I draw length was too long. And now with that 29-inch draw length that I'm shooting, I don't hit those big heavy coats. So, and that's what's comfortable for me is just that half inch shorter. Gives me a little more bend in my arm. And the way I teach it, I want that arm to extend out. As I shoot, I want it to extend out to the target. So that's something to make sure that is all right. So we're kind of going a little more back in a little bit in more detail about how to set it up, because I think it's important to make sure that your equipment is set up right before we can get in and try and, fine tune that mental game. Now, as a beginner, selecting the right draw weight, for your bow, that's kind of a crucial step, in developing. You don't want to be shooting too heavy a weight to start with. Basically, recurve, beginners, they start dry weight at 20 to 25 pounds. If you're using compound weight, that can vary. My first bow when I was, I think just barely a teenager was a 25-pound fiberglass recurve, Ben Pearson. I still have it. I don't shoot it because the fiberglass is starting to split a little bit, but I still have that bow and the string that was on it when I was shooting it when I was a kid. In fact, I put a little bracket on it to hold for a fishing reel, and I can't even get my hand in it anymore. But that's when I was, like just barely a teenager. So now I've got a little bit of quick reference for compound bows to start off with. A youth between like 8 and 12, you're going to start off with 10 to 16 pounds is roughly a place to start. And teenagers from, 12 to 14, maybe 14 to 22 pounds. A little bit older teens, 15 to 18, 24 to 28 pounds. Now that's where to start. That doesn't mean that you're going to, you stay there. Young women and male teens, little bit older, 26 to 36 pounds. That's going to be kind of a range. And then ladies with above average strength and younger males, 30 to 40 pounds, and the average man, 40 to 50 pounds. Now then the men and women with above average strength, 40 to 60 pounds, that's where they can start. That doesn't mean they have to stay, but that's some place to start. And you don't want to start too heavy because you're going to get too tired. You're not going to good form. So it's important to start with that weight that's going to allow you to shoot it comfortably, so you can focus on your form. After all, starting off with the form is what counts. Until you get the form down, we talked about that earlier in one of the other podcasts. Until you get that form, and don't even put any sights on your bow, because if the form isn't right, you're not going to do it. And you want that draw weight to be easier than harder to start with. Now we've kind of gone through all of the preliminary stuff to make sure, we understand what we have to do with the bow equipment. So at this point, we're going to assume that all that fits you perfectly. You've got the bow set up, so it's just part of you and you're just comfortable with it. You don't have to think about what's going on with the bow. You're just there. So now let's get into the mental game in archery. The mental game in archery is often what separates the good archers from the great ones. It's not about having a steady hand or an eye for an aim. It's about the ability to maintain focus, composure and confidence, under pressure. That's the importance of mental strength in archery, that can't be overstated. That's the important part. A single moment of distraction or doubt, can be the difference between hitting a bullseye and missing the target entirely. So that's just just an instant, you can change. Let's say for an example, an archer, full draw, aiming at the center during high stakes competition, the physical aspects of drawing the bow and aiming is crucial. But really, truly matters is at the moment the archer's mental state. Are they able to block out all the noise of the crowd? The weight, if that expectation, the focus solely on the shot. This is where the mental training comes into play. You know, archery, mental training, the art, or you can call it archery psychology, involves preparing yourself to take that shot with a clear and focused mind. It's about exercising your brain to improve that overall shot ability. This includes setting goals for improvement, focusing on technique, and developing a consistent mental routine that aligns with your physical actions. Mental toughness enables archers to maintain that focus throughout the competition, minimizing that impact, of distractions and maintaining, high level of concentration. You know, that's what we're striving for. That is the challenge, Um, some of the common mental challenges for archers, includes managing competition nerves. Are you getting nervous, when you're there? Performance anxiety, where you're afraid, you're thinking about, are you going to do good? And the things, the mental things that you start telling yourself is going to make you, hit the center shot like you want, or it's going to make you start missing. Um, and then there's pressures. You want to perform at your best. All of us want to perform at the best. So now you put yourself under that pressure. It's like, okay, I did this last one. I have to do better. I have to do better. I can't miss. Is one of the things that we say to ourselves that actually makes us miss. That you want to concentrate on, on the skills, not the outcome. One of the things that I'd heard in one other one is like, once you make a decision, don't worry about the outcome. So once you go in there, don't worry about what the arrow does after you shot. Go through, just focus on everything you want throughout that whole shot. You know, there's a couple of things that you can do to practice, practice mindful meditation, and then train your mind to stay present and focus. Use visualization and mental rehearsal, rehearsing of your shots, to engage that positive, self-talk to and reinforce the abilities of of past success. You know, I was listening to an audible on the way home, and it's talking about, Babe Ruth, the highest held the record for the highest number of home runs, but he also held the highest record for number of strikeouts. So, a star baseball player only hits 30% of the time. The rest of the time they failed, and they're a star. So when you think about it, it's like, and what did they focus on? They didn't focus on the fact that he struck out. I imagine his whole focus was, I'm gonna hit that ball out of the park. Whatever it takes, I'm gonna hit it out of the park. And he misses, no big deal. Next time he gets up, I'm gonna hit it out of the park. So that's something you look at too, is, when you get up there, go through the whole mental aspect of going through, and we can kind of talk about some of this stuff a little bit later too, but we'll go into a little more stories a little bit later too if we have some time on here. We'll see if anybody has any questions in the group. Yeah, not yet. So and now let's dive a little deeper into the mental game, where champions are truly made. The champs that, the psychology behind peak performance in archery, it's kind of fascinating and overlooked. Drawing insights from Maxwell Maltz. He has a good book that I've been, listening to it now, Psycho-Cybernetics. You know, there, he understands the subconscious mind and plays a pivotal role in shaping the performance, on the range. Um, it's actually good if you want a good book that's going to help you through some of the mind games. Listen to that book. It's a long. The Audible is like 14 hours long, so it's going to keep you busy on long trips or going to and from work. So it's just something that's really cool, and I wanted to include some of that in this because the principles that he teaches, you know, about self-image and the mental picture, we hold of ourselves, that directly affects our actions and outcomes. When we visualize ourselves as skilled, confident archers, hitting the bullseye with ease, our subconscious mind accepts that as truth and works tirelessly to align our actions, with this image. Conversely, if our image is clouded with doubts and insecurities, or performance on the range, may suffer as a result. Negative self-talk and limited beliefs, that can sabotage the efforts, to prevent us from reaching our full potential. Um, one of the examples that I use a lot, about what you're thinking about. You want to think positive. Um, what you say is what you're going to think about. So let's do a couple different scenarios. One, for those of you that know what the American flag looks like, okay, I don't want you to think about the American flag. Now the American flag, it's pretty nice, but don't think about the American flag. And, once again, I don't want you to think about the American flag. What are you thinking about? What are you picturing? You're picturing the American flag. So you can use that same kind of thing. It's like, okay, um, I see my arrow dead center, in your X ring, there's a little X in it, or some of them a little circle. My arrow is sitting dead center in that little X in there. Dead center. That's where my arrow is. I go up there and I'm thinking, that's where my arrow is. I got 5 arrows in the center of that target. I got 5 arrows in the center of the target. So what are you thinking about? 5 arrows in the center of the target. Now, if somebody says, well, don't miss. Somebody else says, well, hope you don't miss. What are you thinking about? Missing. So what are you going to do? You're going to miss. This same thing I seen. I was watching one. I told this a little bit earlier, but on one of the other podcasts. But I was watching one of the cooking shows, and one of the hosts come around that does all the judging, and this one lady was just cutting up whatever vegetable it was, and he says, "Don't cut yourself," and it wasn't 2 minutes later, medic, she cut herself. So what did he do? He put cut herself in her mind. So now what did her mind focus on? Cutting herself, cutting herself. That's not, you forget the not. You think they're cutting herself. So what did it do? End up cutting herself. So if he had just not said anything, most likely, she wouldn't have cut herself. So what you think of is what you're going to get. So that's some of the things that we want to look at. You want to, cultivate that positive self-image, and nurturing a silent mindset, is paramount to achieving success. By practicing visualization techniques, affirmations and mental rehearsals, we can reprogram our subconscious to support these goals. So what you want to do is go up there and go through your whole process. If you have to do this before you even take a shot, go up there before it's your time. You can go up to the line in your mind. You can do eyes closed or eyes open. You're walking up to the line. You put your foot in front. You get your line. You get your bow ready. You grab your arrow. You knock your arrow. You come up. You draw back. You get your anchor point, and you're aiming at your target. Your shot goes off, and that arrow is dead center in your target. Come back, and then now you mentally go through all 5 shots before you even go to the line. Now, when you go walk up to the line, you're picturing what you just pictured in your mind, walking up to the line. You're going through your first shot. You draw back. You're focusing on that arrow in the center because you've already pictured you're going to do this, and you shoot, and that arrow goes in the center. Well, now you're off that picture. Whatever it did, you don't care, because at the point you release that arrow, it's done. You don't even pay attention to it. You go to the next process getting your second arrow and your second rifle, shooting at your second target, and going through and you shoot that. Once that arrow is off, okay, now you start resetting into the mental pictures you presented of yourself, going through your third shot and your fourth shot. Don't worry about where it goes, because you've already pictured it being dead center. You don't want to look at it. Now, if you go up there and one's not, it's like, oh, okay, I got 4 of them right. What did I do wrong on that one? Maybe you lost a little focus. That's what you're going to go back to. Understanding, the principles of goal setting, and feedback loops, you set your goal. This is kind of outlined in psycho-cybernetics. It's kind of hard word to say sometimes. Um, you know, Listening to that book is going to help reaffirm, kind of what I'm saying here. It's going to enhance that mental game, setting clear, achievable goals, regularly, and assessing your goals as you're going through there. So you have your goal of going through there, going through shooting those 5 arrows, and those are good. So maybe you want to set a goal to go through, now mentally go through this and practice, going through your whole 60 shots, mentally do this. If you can't get to the range, take a time and sit down and mentally go through it. Even if you're sitting there and you're going through and using your body, going through it, going through the motions, and you're picturing everything going off. You hit dead center of the X, you come through with your all with your eyes closed, you're feeling that shot going off. And you go through that whole thing each time, and set a goal to go through there. And now you've pictured yourself getting that 360x. You've pictured yourself doing it. So now you've done it in your mind multiple times, and now it's just a matter of going up and actually doing it. Your mind's already told yourself you can do it. You know the the mental game that we're kind of playing with ourselves here. It's all about harnessing the power of the subconscious mind. Setting the stage for our success by overcoming mental barriers. That may hinder our performance. By applying lessons, that teach, Maxwell Maltz teaches inside psycho-cybernetics, we can, unlock that potential and become actors, archers, we inspire to be. So, I encourage you to check out that book. You can get it on Audible, so you can listen to it. That's how I'm listening to it. It's nice. It's all set up where there's all kinds of stuff that you can do in there. It's a really, really good book. So that's kind of where I got a lot of my information on here, about this, because it just kind of, what I've been thinking about as I was listening to that, and that's just really helping out with what, what I'm doing in here, and really getting the information in here that's going to keep everything, kind of together, and that's really helping out a little bit, and me working and working at that, and then going through and, helping other archers, through that mental game, because that's the biggest challenge is how do you block out stuff and how do you program your mind to do what you want it to do, you know, as let's see, let's talk about, setting goals. That cybernetic mechanism is akin to programming your mind. So that's what we're kind of doing. We're trying to program your mind. Um, let's kind of dive in a little bit into, leveraging, that self-regulating system, with your subconscious mind. You want to set the goals that are effectively, going to improve your skills. You want to incorporate insights from, what Maxwell Maltz teaches. That's kind of what we're going in here is some of the stuff here. I'm kind of trying to relay all the stuff that's in those, 10 hours I've listened to 10 hours of the 14 so far, or 12, I think it's 14 hours or 4 hours, 10 hours. I forget, it was so long. I forget how it was like, so I got about 4 hours left. I think I got 6 hours into it. So there's a lot of information in there, and everything is a little bit more. So one of the things I'm going to talk about is, we're understanding the cybernetic mechanism. Maltz teaches us that our mind is a goal-seeking mechanism. It consistently seeks to achieve the goals and objectives we set for ourselves. By setting that clear, positive goal, for your archery practice, you can activate that cybernetic mechanism, directing our thoughts and behaviors into, actions to our desired outcome. I need some water. Been talking too long here. Now, one of the things you want to do is you want to set a clear and positive goal. Begin by defining your clear and positive goals, that inspire you and motivate. If it's not something that you really want to do, you're not going to motivate yourself. You can visualize hitting the bullseye, with precision and consistency. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. What's your subconscious mind, your subconscious mind does not distinguish between real and imagined. Um, so by vividly imagining success, you prime your mind to align your actions with this objective, steering you towards, success in a range. If you constantly picturing yourself going through this, if you're at a tournament and you've, you're kind of jittery, just stand someplace and close your eyes and go through the whole shot process for all 60 arrows, where you wait for your turn to come up. While the other group is up there shooting, you got plenty of time to go through your shot process, go through and do it. Don't just kind of rush through it. Say, okay, it's first shot, second, third, fourth, fifth shot. Take the same time as if you were shooting it. When the group ahead of you is shooting their 60 arrows, you visualize you shooting when they're shooting their first 5 arrows, or assuming they're shooting a 5 spot. As they're shooting their 5 arrows, you're shooting your 5 arrows, but you're getting perfect shots every time. As they go to the next one, you do the same thing. You're going through, so it's the same cadence as if you were on the range, actually doing it. And now when you get up there, you've already mentally shot that, that 60x 300 round, because that's what it takes to win nowadays. When I first started, it's like, 298, you'd win. And now 300, you may not win, because there's archers out there getting 60 X's. And how are they doing it? Well, not only they practice, but they've developed this mental game. So they've mentally told themselves that they can do this, and they're doing it. So I haven't talked to any of them yet, but I'm trying to get one on the podcast to talk to them. What do you go? What's your mind going through to prepare for this? And I wouldn't be not surprised if they mentally visualize all this going on, because that really helps. Now, we've been talking about imagination. You want to, embrace that power, that imagination, in performance. Really feel, imagine that perfect shot every time you shoot. Bow leaves. You know what a perfect shot feels like, because remember in an earlier podcast we went through how to tell what that perfect shot feels like. And when you're thinking about it, think about that perfect shot going off, how it feels in your hand, because you can make it feel however you want. In your hand, you don't know the difference, because your mind is seeing what your eyes are kind of picking up and transmitting what your mind is seeing. So it doesn't know whether the mind has created it or the eyes have created it. So your subconscious is going to do what you tell it to do. Um, you know, just immerse yourself in those mental imagery. That will activate. That kind of activates the neural pathways, that it so that you can execute that shot flawlessly. You've developed those neural pathways to do that. Just like in martial arts, when we practice something, we practice it and practice it and practice it, and next thing you know, it's just a reaction. That's why, a lot of times you'll see somebody in martial arts, that something start rolling off the table, and this next thing you know, they're grabbing it. It's like, how they grab it? Well, they knew it was going to be and went to where it was going to be, not where it's at. We've just out of practice, we've done that. You drop something and just catch it. And one of the drills we used to do is you had to be ready from a punch, from the rear hand, and they'd have a, a punching bag, the little handheld ones, and they would about head high, they'd drop it, and you had to punch it from clear back by your waist to out and clear in the front of you by time that pad got past you. So you had to punch it. So you had to see it, anticipate where it's going to be and not where it's at. So you learn to anticipate that. And so you train it. So it's just muscle memory. So now in so you just automatically do it. You don't have to think about it. You've done it so many times. It's just muscle memory. Muscles just do it. Um, you know, that's why, somebody's had a lot of martial arts training. You're probably not a good idea to come up and grab them from behind, because the reaction takes over, and then they think, it's just a reaction to what they've been trained to do. That's just like, we're doing archery is you want to train enough so that you don't have to think about what you're doing. You just know you come back and put over there, you go through your process. You don't need to think about, okay, I need to get my grip in this position. I need to put this. I need to drop back. I need to make sure you get the anchor point and all this. So you're not thinking through all this. Because while you're thinking about that, it's not practice enough. You're not in, going through all that. You want to take a look at, all the different aspects. Oh, had to sneeze there. Hey, I had to mute there. Um, so that, you want to embrace that positive feedback. You know, it's a tool there for you to refine your technique. Just make sure you're going through it and identify all those things that you want to work on. And if there's something you want to work on, take a video of yourself and see, oh, I need to work on this. Not to just focus on that one thing. Start picturing you doing it right, doing how not necessarily right, but doing it the way you need to do it to make you a better shot. So just keep going through there, and just keep applying those the principles we've been talking about. Setting goals, visualization, positive feedback, practice. If you visualize that perfect practice, you're going to have that perfect practice. um, we can just go through and just look at that stuff. Uh, it's kind of hard to, um, really get a lot of detail in here, but I'm trying to get as much as I can, kind of explain the different things, what you can do and what, to help you out. Because after all, we're at the point now we need to fine tune our mental game. That's what we're trying to do here. And this one is help you improve that mental game where now you can take it to that next level. You know, and just remember that goal setting and visualization, those are powerful tools that are going to impact your archery. You know, one of the things we do is setting goals. So let's kind of go over a little bit on ways that you can set a clear goal. Um, you know, setting goals in archery, and it begins with clarity and specific uh, goals. You want to be specific in it. Instead of vague goals like improve my shooting. Um, strive for what they call a SMART goals, which is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So instead of saying I want to get better, well, so an example would be increase my accuracy by 10% within the next 3 months. You know, is that a SMART goal? Well, that provides a clear direction and a tangible target, to aim for. So you have everything in there. You have a specific goal. You want to increase by 10%, which, that's an easy number to figure out. What is your score now? And add 10% to it. So you want to increase by how many points it happens to be. Is it measurable? Yeah, because did you increase by 10%? Is it achievable? Well, yeah. Um, unless you're shooting 360 X's, it's kind of hard to increase by 10% because you're already there. So what you want to do then is you want to say, okay, I want to shoot instead of one 360X, I want to shoot two in a row. I want to shoot three in a row, four in a row. Because you may throw one once in a while. So now then you're at that 360X. Now your goal is to get two of them in a row. You got two of them in a row, and now you reset your goal. I want three in a row. You get three in a row, you reset your goal. You want four in a row. So just once you achieve that goal, kind of keep updating it. Now, once you've defined your goals, it's time to visualize success. So now your visualization involves vivid imagination. Imagine yourself sitting on those. We've kind of talked about that. Closing your eyes, mentally rehearse each step. From knocking arrow to release the shot, hitting the target, everything. Engage all your senses. Be as realistic as possible. If there's sounds that you're hearing, maybe when you're visualizing, you're hearing other bows going off. You can hear the bows next to you going off, and because it's not quiet. So now you start putting those sounds in there, and smells or something. Say you're at a tournament and they're cooking food, and you got the food, smell of food. Just visualize, add whatever you need to make it as realistic as possible. And by setting those goals, visualize them, you're just going to get a whole lot better at what you're doing. You just need to be consistent. That's the biggest thing. You want to incorporate, like we talked about, visualization, um, in your pre-practice routines. Try this when you're going to this practice. It's not even been a tournament. You're gonna go practice. Say you're gonna shoot. If you're gonna shoot a three spot, then you go through your routine of shooting a three spot. If it's the three that form a triangle, then you're gonna picture that. If you're gonna shoot the three in a row, shoot that. If you're gonna shoot a single spot, shoot that. If you're gonna do five spot, whatever you're gonna shoot, just use that as your visualization and go through, and then that's going to ingrain it in your subconscious and then make it easier to translate that mental imagery to tangible results. you know just you have to remember that setting the goals and visualizing your targets, it's not a wishful thinking. You need to prime it for success. This needs to be what you're going to do. You're going to set that clear goal and you're going to visualize that goal, and then just going to keep going for it. Now, we've got some of our effective visualization techniques. That is actually a pretty powerful tool that can enhance your archery. So, you want to create that detailed image. One of the things you can do, to help with this is find a quiet space where you can relax without interruptions. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, center your focus. Imagine yourself preparing for your shot, feeling the bow in your hands, and seeing the target in front of you. Envision the process of the drawing the bow, aiming and releasing the arrow. Feel the success of the arrow hitting the target exactly where you intended. That's where you're going to actually see what's going. When you're actually shooting it for, live, you don't focus on the arrow, because the only that can only give you negative feedback. You're pitching everything. Don't worry about it until done shooting. Like the Kenny Rogers song, there's time to count, time for dealing, time for counting, and time for counting is not while you're playing, it's after you're done. So I don't remember the exact words, but everybody's heard that Kenny Rogers song. By going through those, you will improve your shots. There's a lot of athletes that um, employ this technique, and they prove and focus and reduce anxiety. There's some, examples here that, goal setting, that we can talk about. Uh, here's one thing for goal setting. As an intermediate archer, you set your goal to improve. You score average of 10 points in the next 6 weeks. You break this down into smaller goals, like adjusting your stance and practicing your draw technique 5 days a week. Now, visualization, let's take you're a competitive archer. You're going to visualize your entire routine before a tournament. You imagine the weight of the bow, the tension in your muscles, the focus on your target, and the feeling of the release. This mental practice does help you stay calm and focused during actual competition. And if you do get to one and you're having a little trouble, it's like, just normally you've got plenty of time. If you start feeling a little tension, close your eyes. Normally you've got plenty of time to make your shot. It's not like you're rushed to shoot them. You know, you shot you sometimes in the time you have to shoot. Sometimes you shoot two arrows, so you got time. Go ahead, close your eyes, bring your bow up, mentally go through, and then go through your shot. Even if you don't want to draw it back or anything, just mentally go through it and then wake up and wake up. I mean, open your eyes and now go through that process. Just imagine. It's going to take a lot of those nerves out of there. you know, by going through all this, you're gonna get better. Um, let's we kind of talked about some of our techniques. Let's kind of review some of the technique places where you can have problems, you know, that can hinder you in the process. One thing is your stance. You gotta make sure your stance is stable. Shoulder width apart. Such weight's evenly distributed. All that can affect what's going on because you're thinking about. That's what you do is visualize all that being going in through here. Your grip. You want to pay attention to that grip. That stuff we talked about at the beginning. So I'm not going to elaborate too much on it, but um, you don't actually grip the bow. You just put your hand in. It's just there to keep it from coming back at you. Knocking your arrow. Make sure that knocks on consistently. If you have have an arrow that, it should snap on, and you don't snap it on, all of a sudden the arrow falls off. That can mess everything up for you. Because all of a sudden this arrow falls, and now you're just all messed, it can mess you up. Well, if that happens, just leave the arrow, lay, grab another arrow. You should always have more arrows than what you need in your quiver anyway. Let lay on the ground. It's gone. Just it's forget it. Just go through your whole process again. Grab your arrow, go through, and ignore it. You get time to pick it up when you're done shooting. Now, drawing your bow. Remember, we talked about that, in one of the previous episodes. You want to make sure you have a smooth, fluid draw. You don't want to have any jerky motions or nothing, because that doesn't lead to consistency as you're going through trying to push it back really hard or whatever. You want to make sure that you're drawing your bow in a good, good smooth way. Your release, make sure you've got that release all set up smooth. It's set up the way you like it. It's in there. If it's not feeling right, adjust it. Make sure it feels right on your hand. And here's one thing, a follow through, that I don't think we've talked about too much before is, once that arrow leaves your bow, you're not done with your shot. Your shot's not done until the arrow actually hits the target. Now, if it's a long ways out, it's going to be a little while. But when you shoot, I've seen archers all of a sudden trying to look over the bow to see where the arrow's going. Well, you're shooting and trying to see where it's going at the same time. You're going to be affected when the arrow flies, and it's not going to go where you want it to. Shoot, let that bow go. If you have one of the bows that's going to tilt forward in your hand, go ahead and let it tilt forward. Once it tilts forward, that arrow's already gone. If it just sits in your hand, just follow through. Just keep aiming on that target. And when you follow through, keep aiming at that target. You're going to hear your arrow hit. Once that arrow hits, you don't need to aim anymore. So that'll keep you follow through. That's a big thing in a lot of shooting sports, is the follow through. Not just shooting sports, a lot of sports that involve, any kind of a technique where you're doing a motion. Basketball, throwing a basket, golf, tennis, all those kind of sports. Anytime you have any kind of a projectile that you're doing or anything you're throwing, football, the follow through as you're throwing that football, you have that. You don't just throw them with your release, let go, you follow through. Same thing in archery. You want to make sure you follow through. Break it down a little bit. And that you've got the thing that we're going to talk about here is a self-image. The self-image plays a lot in it. Let's detail some of the benefits, perception about yourself impacting performance. If you have a positive self-image, would say, I'm an archer. I hit what I'm aiming at. You go through all that stuff. If you think it's like, well, I'm not as good as them. You're right, you're not. You never will be, because you just said they're better than you are. If somebody's shooting better than you, like, I can beat them. If you don't have the skill, you know what? You can learn the skill, because there's nobody out there that can't be beat. Somebody's going to beat them. And it might be a young kid that's just starting out, his first tournament ever, and he beats a pro that's been doing it for 30, 40 years. It can be done, and it has been done. So, you just want to make sure you keep that positive thing. At times you're going to have that negative talk come into your head. Just limits. If you say, well, they've been shooting for 30 years and they're winning tournaments all the time. Who am I to come in here and challenge them? Well, now you just told yourself you're never going to beat them, and aren't going to beat them unless you change, get rid of that negative and say that, hey, I can do this. I'm shooting as good as they are, so why can't I win? And you want to go through, just keep, the skills that you've learned, just keep going with them. When you do have a win, whether big or small, celebrate it. Celebrate those wins, no matter how small they are. You go through and it's like, okay, I got my first 300. Don't care how many X's you got. You never got a 300 before. So That's a small win. And then you can just gradually go in. It's like it'll add up the number of X counts and just keep going. It's just small win, just celebrate them. And then what you want to do is if you've got people around it that are always negative, they're not going to help you out. You want to stay around people that are positive, your coaches and teammates that are positive. They're going to support you. If you're not doing good, they're going to help you get over that and just keep you going, keep you encouraged. It's like you know you can do it. They know you can do it. So what's going on. Maybe there's something, maybe you got something in your mind that you're not thinking about. This just don't feel good for you. Now, if you do have failures, you're shooting for that 300 and you miss it by 1 point. Well, it's not fair. You get 299. There's a lot of archers that can't even break 200. You get 299. And what did you do on that one that you missed? What did you do wrong? Okay, I lost focus. Well, that's why you lost focus. Um, there could be all kinds of different things. Don't let them bother you. Like I said, a pro baseball player loses, misses the bat, strikes out, 70% of the time they don't get a hit. So, and they're a star. They failed 70% of the time and they're one of the top stars. So don't worry about that. Just focus on the good stuff. Yeah. And then you want to just keep an open mind, stay curious. There may be something that you can do differently. Maybe somebody's got a technique that they are doing, and you're not right before tournament or anything. And it's like, okay, that seems to be working pretty good for them. Why is it working for them? What's different about what I'm doing? Maybe I can tweak just a little bit and try it. If it doesn't improve your scores, well, then you can stay with it because it didn't hurt them. Didn't hurt them, didn't improve them. It's just different. Choose one you liked better. You can always do that. So let's talk about there's some inspirations that I was able to get from Maxwell Maltz's book Psycho Cybernetics. He's got the groundbreaking work on there. That's kind of a new thing that's come along where they start talking about how the mind plays all these roles in there, and they can be applied not just in archery but in any field. uh, the core concept of the cybernetics mechanisms provides actionable strategies that leverage the principles to achieve success on the range. That self-programming is the thing that we really go through. um, and just you just got to program. It's like programming your subconscious mind is like programming a computer. You just tell it what to do and just keep telling it what to do, and eventually it does it. And when I first started out in computers, it's like, there wasn't really, they didn't really do a lot like they did now. Back when I first was designing with them, what I used for a main processor chip a few years later was just dedicated running a keyboard. It used to be the whole computer was running on it, and now it's just set up for it just runs a keyboard. You know, and math processor chips didn't even exist. So now they got chips that does math. And then, look at what computers are doing now with AI. There's a lot of things, and a computer understands either it's on or off. Each bit is either on or off. That's all it knows. There's no gray areas. It's either yes or no, on or off. But it's how you put all those together. And that's what we're doing is we're programming our mind to do what we want it to do. And just like we're programming a computer, that's basically all it is. Now, with a computer, you need feedback. If you send out a signal to do something, you don't know if it's got it. So you have a signal that comes back and feeds back to it. And now it says, oh, okay, I need to adjust because I told it to go to this point, but it didn't go there yet. So I need to keep telling it to go there. Oh, okay, it went too far. I need to tell it to back up a little bit. Eventually it'll get there. That's the same thing you're doing with your mind. You're going to get the feedback. what did you go through? This feedback should be continuously coming back to you, to correct everything, so that now you get feedback from a coach. Let's say, you went through and you wanted to get a coach because, if you're the coach and the student, you have a real bad student. It's tough to coach yourself. That's why you always have somebody else to coach you and help you through everything. So you get the feedback from them. Whether you record a video and then the coach watches it, or it's in peers or something, they're going to analyze that and come back and say, okay, here's what I'm seeing on this little bitty spot right here. And then they can come back and show you, okay, here's you're doing this. And then you take that feedback and then you make your adjustment. It's not like you did something wrong. That's a big feedback loop. You send out you send out something, feedback comes back. You course correct and go. It's like anything else, in the audiobook. I was talking about, that you take like a missile that's shot at a target. It's working on negative feedback, so it's going somewhere. It knows where it needs to go. It gets the feedback. Oh, I need course correct. And then it keeps course correct until it finally hits this target. And that's what you want to do with your shooting, is take that feedback and then course correct based on it. It's not you did wrong. It's just feedback. It's not right or wrong. It's just feedback. What do you need to do with it? Just change it. Um, that's basically what you want to do, is just take that feedback and go from there. Now, one thing we just want to, quickly go, you want to visualize that peak performance. Only visualize the absolute best that you want to do, and don't think of anything else. Don't say, well, when you're going along, I've seen a lot of, I watch some of your football games, and the team is way ahead in the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter, they're way ahead. They lose. Now, how did they lose? They were so far ahead. Well, the team that's behind didn't lose focus. They want to get every yard they can, every point they can. The ones that are way ahead, they started coasting. Maybe they said, okay, we'll take our first stringers out, put our second stringers in. Oh, we're so far, let's put our third stringers in. And there it's like, oh well, let's not worry about it. We're so far ahead. And next thing you know, it comes down to the last play, and it's last play, win or lose, and now they can't get their momentum back because they lost it. So you just want to keep that drive, keep going through. Once you achieve a goal, then you want to keep going. So, if you get so far ahead, you want to put in your second stringers. If you're saying a football game, put your second stringers in, but don't tell them don't not to score. You want them to score as much as they can. If you start getting too early ahead, put your third stringers in and tell them, I want you to score every time score. There's a story I heard of Walter Payton. Every time he cut the ball, he run to the end zone. He run a touchdown in practice. Every time he got it, he run to the end zone. So what did he do in a game? Got the ball, run to the end zone. So there's something you have that goal. You just want to go for it. Yeah. Let's see. We did talk a little bit about feedback and adjusting. That's an important part of it. You want to take that feedback and utilize it, to make those adjustments you need. And if you don't know what feedback that you need to get, sometimes you take a coach and they're going to give you the feedback. As long as, if you're open to be coached, if you're coachable and open for suggestions, take the coach's suggestion. If you don't like what the coach is doing, get a different coach. So there's a lot of coaches out there. There's one that's going to be the perfect one for you. Just go through and listen to them. Another good tool we've talked about, multiple times, is a video. Take that video and then look at your stance, look at your grip, look at your draw, look at your release. Identify areas that can be improved. And compare your shot to those of skilled archers. Maybe you can take, if you have a chance to watch a video of some of these archers that shoot these 360 X's, or in a 5 spot, if it whatever you want to watch it. If you can get a video of them doing it, and then just sit there and analyze what they're doing on their video and then analyze what you're doing. You can kind of compare. Now, they may be doing it different because of some physical limitations they might have, or you might have, may not be able to do it exactly, but take that, use that. Like I said earlier, if you're not sure, take a video of your shooting, and then upload your raw video to archtalk101.com and say, hey, can you take a look at my video, and give me some pointers on how I can get better, and then show what you're shooting, how your groups are shooting. You know, take a shot, shoot 5 arrows, and record all 5 shots, and we can see how your targets are going. We can look at everything else, and we can give you some ideas. So just come out there and do that. That's something that it's free in the group. You don't have to pay for that. That's all just free. We're here to help you out. You know, and then one of the things you want to do is you want to keep track of your shooting. So if you really want to improve, start logging your shots. So if let's just say we're using a 5-spot, because that's mostly what I always shot, was a 5-spot. I didn't like shooting single spots because I wrecked too many arrows. So you're going to shoot in the same order every time. So top left, top right, middle, bottom left, bottom right. And then you'll know that that's the order you go in, and then put in there what you shot. And if you missed, you could put, like a clock number, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, and put a number in a circle in it. Okay, I got a 4 at 9 o'clock. I got another one at 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So now then you know where that arrow hit on that target, as well as what the score was. So now you kind of see what's going on. If you're always to the left, now that you need to figure, okay, what am I doing? It's always pulling left. Or maybe I'm always pulling left on the left ones, but I'm okay on the middle and left on the other ones. Well, maybe you're lined up for that middle one, but you're not lining up for the other 2 shots. So there's ways that you can figure out exactly what's going on by logging the right information. And don't be afraid to experiment. There's different techniques, different training methods. Figure out what works good for you. You can talk to other archers, say, what their training, is, and stay flexible, open mind. Maybe what you want to do is, be serious. If you're, let's say you shoot 5 times a week. Well, 5 times a week shooting at the same target and the same thing, that can get a little bit boring, let's say. So maybe you practice 2 days on your target. The third day, you actually put out a game target, and you and somebody else shoots at a game target. Or let's say you have, like a tic-tac-toe target, and you got 5 arrows. So you shoot your 5 arrows, and you shoot the next 5 arrows. You're trying to take away the 5 arrows that you shot. If you're all by yourself, you got somebody else shoot within, it's kind of a little bit more fun. Shoot something different one of the days. You're still picking them out. There's dart games that you can play. There's a great big target. Looks like a big dart board that you throw regular darts at. You shoot them with your bows. So there you can play that. It's different spots. You're picking different spots. You're not always shooting that center of that white ring, or the center of the yellow ring, or whatever it happens to be. Keep some changes in there. You need to be consistent and patient, because it doesn't happen overnight. Like the same, Rome wasn't built in a day. I think it probably took a few centuries to build Rome. I don't know how long it took, but it wasn't, in a day. And you're not going to master this in a day either. You just need to be patient. And as long as you're improving, you're on the right course. Now, if you get to a point where you're not improving, and you're actually starting to get worse, well, you might need to take a break or get a coach, because there's something that you're doing that's not there. Or maybe you're just getting, you're not into it as much as you was before. Take a little break. Instead of shooting 7 days a week, 5 days a week, go down to shooting once or twice a week, and then do other things, go off, do something else, come back. Sometimes when you leave something and come back a little bit later, you actually end up being better and advancing quicker, because now you kind of have to come back and you look at all your good things you're doing and you eliminate the bad things that you were doing, you know, so that's something you may have to do. Maybe not. It all just depends on um, what you want to do. Uh, make sure you relax and use that mental rehearsal that we talked about earlier. That's an important thing that you can do. There's a lot of different techniques you can use for relaxing. We talked about some of these, before. Take a, maybe when you get ready to come up to the range, what you do is you go in, you get it all set up before you even draw. Deep breath into the nose, out through the mouth, relax the thing, and then go through your process. There's all kinds of things you can do. Whatever works for you works for you. Just do that, and then just remember, the only shot that counts is the one you're doing now. The next one doesn't count, and the last one doesn't count. The last one's gone. The next one hasn't happened yet. Just worry about now. That's all I need to worry about. Make sure once again, make sure you're using that mental rehearsal in your practice as well. Don't just come out and practice, then figure out how to do it different at the game. When you're competing, how you practice is how you're going to perform. So if you goof off while you're practicing, you're going to goof off while you're trying to perform. You're not going to have that in there. So make sure you're going through and doing all the things that you need to do before you go shoot every time. And if you do have any mental blocks, um, there's going to be mental blocks come in, and just go back and start over with something else you do. When you identify those mental blocks, they can hinder your performance. If you fail to identify them, or you identify them and then you're feeling anxious about them, so you need, if you do have any of those, you're just gonna have to go back and figure out what you was doing before. Just don't let that something block you, especially if somebody says something that goes against your positive thoughts you're thinking. What you want to do is that just immediately when they say something like that, and then just start going through and then reaffirming that positive thing. You should get that out of your mind. Don't think about it anymore. It completely ignore it. It doesn't exist. It doesn't matter. They might be trying to psych you out so they get better, but what they're doing at the same time, when they put a negative thought in your head, they're also putting it in their head. So they say don't miss. What did their mind hear? Miss. Their mind heard miss. So they're more likely going to miss if you know how to take that out, change it around to I'm gonna this arrow is gonna be dead center in this X ring. I can see it right now. There's no way it's gonna not go in there. It's gonna be there. So that's something you want to make sure you get all those things out of your mind. Once again, you just need to make sure you're in the moment and not go off and think about something else. Nothing else matters at the time when you're shooting that arrow, except shooting that arrow. And don't forget, what you think is what you're going to do. We're going to visualize on a 5 spot, making every shot perfect, dead center, 60 times in a row. That gives you that 360x. And the worst you can do is tie, because nobody can beat you. So I don't know how they do ties on that. Maybe sudden death. But then if there's that, then it's like, okay, it might be, you got to shoot 10 more X's. And so then you just picture, okay, we got five more. So you go through your 5 shots, you go through your visualization, shooting all 5, center X. So that's kind of what we've gone through. We want to make sure that you're focusing on really consistent things that is going to go through and really help you out in being, that archery at that next level. One of the things you want to do is make sure you dedicate some time to practice those, rehearse them. And, there's going to be, a lot of things that you can do while you're thinking. And if you're sitting here waiting for something, if you have to keep your eyes open, keep your eyes open. But while your eyes are open, you can let your mind do what it wants to do. And maybe in your mind, you're visually going through your shooting process or whatever. It doesn't have to be in specific archery. It could be anything. Say you're going to, um, you're going in to talk to somebody that you haven't talked to before, or a boss that's higher up. You think about, okay, you're going to go in, you're going to do this, this, and this, and this. You know what you're going to do. You're not going to be nervous because you've already planned out what you're going to do. You say what you're going to do. You know what you're going to do, and they're just another person. You go in, so you can use those techniques more than just in archery, but we just kind of focus this mostly on archery just because this is an archery podcast. But let's go through and uh, get all those mental things figured out. So let's go. A conclusion here. As we conclude our discussion, on mastering the mental game in archery, remember that success on the range begins in the mind. By applying the principles and techniques we've covered today, you can cultivate mental fortitude, enhance your performance, and achieve your goals as an archer. So go forth with confidence, trust in your abilities, and shoot for the stars. Till next time, keep aiming true. And just want to remind everybody, thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to join the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group for the live podcast replays and expert advice. Replays are available in the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group, on my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself, and at archtalk101.com. And if you prefer to listen to the audio, Spotify and audible.com. You can also get Maxwell Maltz's Psycho-Cybernetics in Audible there. So that'd be a good book to listen to. And once again, thanks for watching. And the next lesson, lesson 14, would be the next time. And stay tuned for that. We're gonna cover another cool subject on archery, kind of take you to the next level. And then I think the one after that, have some more interviews lined up. So stay tuned. We got some more cool stuff coming. And thanks for watching. And my name's Roy Canterbury. I've been host today on Arch Talk 101, and we'll see you on the next one.